And a good Friday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining for this tropical update. It is presented by our newest partner, Paul Davis Restoration of Baton Rouge. As always, we do appreciate them. Visit their Facebook page and website. Give them a like over there in case you need their services. The phone number is there, and you can tell them Gulf Coast Updates sent you. So here we go. We're going to talk about, of course, Hurricane Ida now. Since earlier today, when we were on, I was on here a little bit after 10 a.m. and we were talking about Ida at that point as a tropical storm, talking about how it probably would become a hurricane before Cuba. It did, and now it's sitting at 80 miles per hour. It's really between the Isle of Youth there and approaching the western coast of Cuba. So this is kind of that big time period where we're going to see a landfall on the western coast of Cuba here. And then back to the Gulf of Mexico as we go into late tonight and into tomorrow. So by the time we're in tropics after dark tonight, it might have crossed Cuba and it might be approaching, getting back over the Gulf waters. So, so that's what's happening currently. Let me give you all the information, and I'm gonna try and slow down a little bit here. A lot of information to cover, and try and answer some of your, answer some of your questions as well as we move forward here. Okay, so let me give you all the latest information here. And the latest, let me see, give me one sec here, I'll pull this up. So the latest information on Ida, it's, in case you're tracking, 22.1 north, and let's see, 22.1 north and 83.2 west is the current coordinates. Northwest at 15 is the motion. Minimum pressure is 985. The pressure went down a little bit. The max sustained winds are up a bit, from the last advisory. All right, so here we go. This is the latest. All right, obviously in the visible satellite picture, we're seeing, we're seeing the storm taking shape right now. Now you can clearly pick out where the center is, and you can clearly pick out that this is a tropical system. It looks like a pretty decent looking storm right now. All right, so here's what we've learned from the last update. It is forecast now to become a Category 4 hurricane. Okay, and I kind of prepped y'all for that. I didn't want y'all to be taken by surprise when that news hit. Prepped y'all earlier in the page that this was going to actually be probably a likely scenario at this point. And what I kind of told y'all on the page as well is let's hope to God that we can keep this under a 5 and it doesn't overachieve even more. So this is forecast by the National Hurricane Center to be a Category 4 storm now, okay? They are forecasting this to get up to 140 miles per hour now on approach to the coast, all right? So what we're seeing now is obviously we had issues before, and now we have bigger issues. So let's take a look. This is the current track. I think it may have shifted a little bit west since the last advisory, but look, at this point we're going to see shifts back and forth. Like I've been telling you, the one thing I've been really focusing on more so than track right now is intensity. And trying to get the urgency out there that we're going to probably have something out there that was going to be, possibly a Category 4, or maybe even approaching, what could be, a 5. Now, hopefully that's not the case, and we can cap it off there at a 4. But it is forecast now by the National Hurricane Center, if that's official enough. And I know some people on the page were calling me out in that post, and that's fine. I honestly don't care anymore. If people say that I'm trying to scare people and get likes, shares, and ratings, if you guys have been following the page long enough, you understand that I don't do that ever for this. I will tell you like it is for every storm. I will tell you if a storm doesn't have a chance to do much, and I will tell you if a storm is concerning me. This one has been concerning me since the very beginning. A few nights ago when I posted that I was watching it at 2 a.m., I just did not like what I was seeing. But right now, Category 4 is forecast. So let's go into the cone and see what we're looking at here, okay? Because right now, as we look at the details, so now one thing that changed from earlier, if you remember me talking about this, look, it overachieved already, right? It wasn't supposed to be a hurricane before Cuba. Well, it did. It became a hurricane. So now we're starting a baseline right now more than we were, right? Because yesterday at this point, the storm was supposed to be at 50 or 60 mile per hour tropical storm right now. It's not. It's an 80 mile per hour hurricane. So we're already 25 to 30 miles per hour ahead of where we're supposed to be. So as it crosses Cuba, I'm hoping it's a little more than a speed bump, but it might just be a speed bump. in this entire process. And then once it crosses Cuba, it gets back over into the Gulf of Mexico. But notice that point right there, okay? So look, here we are at 4 p.m., of course, right? I don't have to tell you the time. It's 4 p.m. right now. As it crosses Cuba and back into the Gulf, look, at 1 a.m. Tonight, all right? That's tonight. So by the time we get into Tropics After Dark tonight, maybe I'll do some more reports. I'm still trying to figure out if we're getting the heck out of here as well, right? So a lot going on, trying my best to get look, I got a lot of comments, a lot of messages coming into the page. It's just me. It's impossible for me to get to every one of them, but I'm trying to answer y'all. I'm trying to answer the messages. Evacuation questions, those are tough. You really got to make that decision yourself. I mean, you know what's coming, and if you can get out, obviously, do so probably, just to be on the safe side, with something like this. This isn't one of those you want to mess around with, is kind of the point. All right, so anyway, at 1 a.m. tonight, they're forecasting this thing to not miss much of a beat, right? I mean, they're forecasting this to go over Cuba, and that'll do something to it, I think. So maybe let's see what happens, as it gets over Cuba. Maybe it'll disrupt it. Maybe the circulation will be messed up a little bit. I don't know. But anyway, let's go with the National Hurricane Center saying right now. They're saying it's a Cat 2, and that's at 1 a.m. tonight. And that's after it moves over Cuba. And that would not be good. So if this thing goes over Cuba and, gets back into the Gulf and quickly gets back to a Category 2, that is not good news because... And the reason I say that is let me see, I got about 100 things open here. There's one thing here. Where is it? This one. All right. So this is what I showed you on the page earlier. So if we get this storm back into the Gulf, and this is probably not the updated track. This is not the updated track, by the way, so keep that in mind. But it gives you an idea sort of where the track's going to be going. This is before it became a 4 and before this new cone came out. But let me just tell you what concerns me big time right now. If this is indeed a Category 2 right here, this is before it even gets to this point, right? So if it's a Category 2 down there, yes, the Gulf's hot, but it's really got a lot of energy there in that point where it's going to get closer. So if it's already a 2 there, which I hope it's not, I hope that's not going to be true tonight around whenever, midnight-ish, 1 a.m. So we're starting as a 2, and once it gets into that... center portion of the Gulf where all the energy is, all bets are off at that point. So that's what makes me a little bit nervous, with this. So let's step this along. This is tonight at 1 a.m. Category 2, 100 miles per hour, gust to about 120. We take this along. So by tomorrow at about 1 p.m., it's forecast at that point, now way out in the Gulf, y'all. It's supposed to be 120. That's to be a Category 3, gust up to about 150. In the Gulf, and this is far in the Gulf, and that's probably before it even hits that content, high oceanic heat content at that point. Now, moving in, this is where, up here is where we're noticing probably some rapid strengthening. And at this point, this is 1 a.m. Now, this would be Saturday night into Sunday morning. It's forecast to be 130 up to 160 gusts. That would be a Category 4 hurricane. That's right on it. That's the lowest. And by the way, y'all are probably going to get hurricane warnings, notifications to your phone. They just changed the watches to the warnings, so don't be alarmed. That's all that is. It's just things that were already really posted. The watches. Oh! That scared the crap out of me. What timing, right? Jared, stop. Once is enough. All right, so that scared the crap out of me. All right, well anyway, that's what you'll hear. That's just the watches changing to warnings there for your that's the watches changing to warnings. So you'll hear that. It scared me just now. It almost gave me a heart attack, and it did it again just to make sure. So anyway, you might get that in your phone. So all right, so we're looking at a Category 4. At 1 a.m., that's Saturday going into Sunday. And I promise you, Andy, that was not staged. There's no way I could even stage that. That's unbelievable that happened like that. But yeah, not staged. Totally not. All right, so going back to the cone here. Category 4 at 1 a.m., that's Saturday night into Sunday. And then gust up to 130. Now, this is when it's starting to probably hit that part in the Gulf where it's going to have a lot of, energy there. And then by the time we get into this point, this is 1 p.m. on Sunday, and they have it up to 140 with gusts up to about 165. I think the thing to stress right now is the National Hurricane Center a lot of times are kind of conservative on their estimates. So the fact that they're already saying 140 at this point, that's concerning. Because remember at this point yesterday, I think they were forecasting 110, and I told y'all this is getting probably to a 3, and the 3 is likely, and now we're probably going to talk about a 4. But now they're forecasting 140 that far out. So can it overachieve 140 and get above that? I hate to tell you, but I really think the possibility is there from what I'm seeing as far as environment and Gulf content, as far as the oceanic heat content in there. So God, I hope it can stay as well. First and foremost, I hope it doesn't even get to a 4, but if it does, please don't get more, right? So this is what they're forecasting. Again, this is 1 p.m. And at this point, by the time we get into 1 p.m. in the afternoon Sunday, whatever evacuations or where you're where you're going to be going, that should be done at that point, right? Because remember, the center would be there, but the mess is probably already moving in, so it's going to be hazardous to be able to travel at that point. So I would say if you're going anywhere, if you're planning on leaving, if you're going to do it, probably tomorrow is afternoon, even whenever. Tomorrow probably would be the time to get that done. If you're leaving Sunday, I mean early Sunday, like 4 a.m., maybe 5 a.m. early, because once we get into late morning and afternoon, I think things are probably going to start moving in. So so that's when we're going to look at it. So I think the center line, by the way, maybe did shift a little bit to the west, obviously, since the last update. Is that going to mean much? Maybe, especially closer to the coast. But look, with this thing, and this is kind of what I was trying to explain to y'all earlier, with this thing, obviously, we're going to be expanding the wind field with this thing being, a big, very big hurricane, right? So the wind field's going to be pretty big. So east, west side, impacts on both sides, widespread power outages on both sides. And here's so I'm going to go into some impacts in just a second, but here's a look at so that deep pink color there. You see the light pink over there toward the Texas-Louisiana border over there, south of Lake Charles. That's still storm surge watches. Storm surge warnings are now up for everything in this pink area. Okay, so obviously I don't need to tell you that with this hurricane coming up, there's going to be water rise and push of water close to the coast. The numbers are a bit more concerning than we saw yesterday. We were looking at 7 to 11 feet close to the coast now between Morgan City and the mouth of the Mississippi River. Now we're looking at 10 to 15 feet of storm surge and water above the ground there. Also, Lake Pontchartrain 4 to 7 feet. And remember, with when you talk about Lake Pontchartrain, I know they have issues up there in the North Shore when the storm comes in. So depending on where it's going to be coming, you're going to have a storm that's going to be coming in something like this and hooking. So remember the flow around it. At this point, you're probably gonna have like winds in this direction, right, pushing around the counterclockwise, northwest on the North Shore there, pushing water in. And then as the storm gets up here, you're going to have the center up here, and then at that point, you're going to have winds in this direction, pushing it on the South Shore. So you'll have a push of wind in one direction as it approaches, and then a switch as we go around for Lake Pontchartrain. On the coast, they're going to be in all different directions, right? When the center's down here, you're going to have water pushing this way in those areas, Vermilion Bay, Pecan Island, in that direction, and kind of parallel to the coast, on approach there around the counterclockwise rotation. As we get closer and wherever the center comes in, then you're going to have that actual onshore push, and that's where the 10 to 15 numbers can come in, and we're still also looking at 7 to 11 feet. Again, these are the two biggest numbers, and the two most concerning numbers for storm surge would be those, right? The 10 to 15, it's not good, and the 7 to 11 also not good. So storm surge is obviously going to be a pretty big problem, with this system moving forward. Now, here's a look at some of the impacts. This is a good graphic here that the National Weather Service uses, National Hurricane Center. With the wind field likely expanding, I want to talk directly to folks over there in Acadiana as well now around Lafayette. Okay, so the track shifted a little bit to the west. It's not a drastic shift, but it is enough. So you can see what happens after landfall. They're still forecasting to be 90 miles per hour at this point right here with gust up to about 115. Okay, so that's up from where it was earlier because, like I told y'all earlier, a stronger storm at the coast is going to weaken, but it's going to still be stronger once it moves inland. Okay, so so what we're seeing here now as this thing moves inland, obviously we have, if we go back to this map, let me put this side by side here. So if we go back to this map, by the way, and if you can see that down there, this pink area is the potential for wind greater than 110 miles per hour. Okay, so everybody in that pink purple kind of area, it's the potential to see winds 110 miles per hour or more. That could be in the form of wind gust. It could be in the form of sustained winds. But that area right there, and again, with the wind field expanding, even as it moves inland to the west, that's including like Lafayette area, because the wind field is going to be a little bit stronger now, the storm in general is going to be stronger. There's the potential to see winds maybe that high as it moves in, and especially if the track shifts a little bit more west as well. So keep that in mind. That purple area would probably also, doesn't say it right here, but I'll say that that purple pink area right there would probably be the greatest potential for power outages as well. And that stretches close to the center and then stretches out into southeast Louisiana and then up toward Baton Rouge too, because remember, even as this thing comes in toward Baton Rouge, we're still going to probably be close to hurricane strength as it moves to the north. So keep that in mind. So that's the greatest potential to see 110. Now, if you're in this red area, that's a little bit west of Lafayette and portions of the North Shore, you still have the potential to see winds 74 to 110 miles per hour. Okay, so not as much, but still some pretty potent winds right there, right? Are going to be possible. That's in that red area there. So, and of course, as we go a little bit to the north, you get into portions of Mississippi around Alexandria as well, Brookhaven, Natchez, Macomb, even Gulfport and Biloxi are in that orange, but that's still the potential for strong tropical storm force, 58 to 73. With this thing expanding, though, storm surge could still stretch out far eastward, especially with this, because this thing might be a pretty sizable storm once it gets to this point. So keep that in mind. Then the yellow areas up there, wind, probably not the biggest issue. We're talking 39 to 57. Yeah, you'll feel a breeze up there as it moves by without a doubt, or some pretty hefty wind gusts. But wind, as it gets that far north, won't be the biggest issue. Again, the purple and the reds are the areas where you're most likely to see power outages and the most wind. And like I was mentioning, and I'll mention it again right now, earlier, remember, before the actual center moves in, we're going to have the rainfall bands moving in before that, saturating the ground, making the ground a little bit sloppy, a little bit mushy there. And then when these winds come in after, that's where you have the potential for power lines and trees and all kinds of stuff that's usually pretty sturdy in the ground won't be so sturdy anymore. So keep that in mind, that we do have that potential as well as all kinds of different threats with this one. So that's the wind threat. And of course, as we switch to the storm surge threat, this is, pretty obviously, right, where we're looking at this. The greatest storm surge threat, that purple there, let me push this down a little bit so you can kind of see the graphic. So the purple there, all those purple areas would be the greatest areas to see the potential, big to say it, the potential for 9 foot above ground storm surge. With this system that could be strong, could be a big hurricane. That purple area is the areas where you're most likely to see some storm surge, and the red areas are maybe 6 feet in some spots, and then stretching out there you get 1 to 3 feet. But that's your biggest areas, and I just showed you those totals before. And here's maybe the the other threat that we need to talk about is the potential for extreme flooding rain, which to me becomes a big concern actually. I've been talking about this one for a couple of days now because of the fact that as the storm rounds that high, it's going to slow down a little bit on approach probably. And so anyone east of where the center comes in has that potential to see too much rainfall. And I don't know the totals and what we're going to see right now, but that purple area right there, if you're in that purple, right, that's not a good spot because that's the most for the winds, the storm surge down toward the coast, and also the potential for extreme flooding rain is in that pink area. I'm in that pink area. That's not, I'm not thrilled obviously about the forecast, but what are you going to do about it? There's nothing you can do. So the red even expanding as the storm moves to the north, good chance for flash flooding in those areas. We're going to need to watch the rainfall. We're going to need to watch the We're going to need to watch the river levels as well moving in, because remember, as the storm moves north, it drops the rain and all that kind of comes back down into those rivers and streams. They all kind of flow back down to the south. And again, orange and yellow moving north, there is still a chance for some moderate localized flooding as well as the storm moves up there, but the extreme amounts there are going to be right there. And then, so just kind of going through the threats here, and of course we all know about this one, as if that wasn't enough, but wait, there's more. This is the tornado threat. Anytime with a landfalling tropical system, you can have those quickly little spawn tornadoes that happen in those bands. So yeah, not really much help there. It's basically everyone that's going to be close to the storm has a chance to see some a tornado or two or three or maybe four. But yeah, you know the drill by now about tornadoes and tropical systems, I'm sure. All right, where's the graphic? Here it is. All right, so here's the updated rainfall graphic, kind of showing the potential there, and that pink area did increase a bit. So this is kind of what we just showed, but in kind of showing some inches here. So this pink area right here is the potential for, 15 to 20 inches of rainfall in that area there, and then the red area surrounding it is still 10 to 15 inches, and then orange is going to be 6 to 10. So even the orange is 6 to 10 inches of rain, and outside of that as well, you have no, not too bad. If you get into those greens and yellows, I mean, you're good as far as rainfall goes, and it's anywhere from 1 to maybe 6 inches of rain. 6 inches normally is a lot, but not with this. Not when this red and purple's in here. So that's going to be another issue to look at. So this is kind of what happened, right here with the intensity modeling. So remember yesterday, I know some folks were spreading some stuff about, it looks like only a Cat 1 now or a Cat 2, and that started spreading. And I don't know why that happened, but this is where we are now. And now the majority of them are at least Cat 3, but now we're starting to see a lot of them stretch up here into Cat 4, and not only into Cat 4, but the higher end of Cat 4, a couple of them up here. So I was actually, I got to tell you, I'm a little bit surprised at how high the National Hurricane Center went with their intensity for this particular cone. The last one was 120, and they went up to 140. I mean, I thought they might cap it at like 130. So I'm actually even surprised they went so high. So yeah, they're calling for 140 right now, and that would be kind of in the 140 would probably be somewhere like around here in the mid-grade tropical or Category 4 storm. So that that even surprised me a little bit. These are the tracks, and as you can see, one thing that's not very helpful is, the last couple of model runs, and this was the one that they kind of used, forgetting what the heck I'm trying to say now. The last couple had the models clustered in a bit more, but now we saw a little bit of a spread now, toward the end of it, which is not very helpful. Where they're pretty tight, all the way up here, and then at this point we see a little bit of divergence here again, and that's why the cone is still kind of wide at the end, right? But you see a couple of them even going, to the west here. And that's why I'm telling folks in this area, here's where the cluster is, and that's where they have the center right now. But we do see a lot of divergence here, at the end of the cone, which we don't really like to see that. I mean, some people do, right? If you're in the center, you'd like to see a shift. But we want confidence at this point. We want to be able to tell you, and just for everyone. I mean, at this point, look, there's nothing we can do about it. It's going to come in somewhere. But just for sanity, we'd like to know, where this thing is going to go. And this isn't helpful right here when you still do have a few different solutions. So what I was talking about earlier, and I misspoke. Let me make sure I get it right this time, because if you looked in my brain right now, you'd have you wouldn't want to see it because it's all over the place. But so the faster this storm moves, the more likely west it's going to go. If it slows down a little bit, it's more likely to go a little bit more to the east. And I can show you that here on one of these graphics. All right, so here we go. It makes it easier to kind of show what's going on here. This is why I say that. There's a high here, right here, and that's where the storm's going to be riding along. But you want to look up here in this area, and just let me show you what's going to be happening here. So as the storm moves up to the northwest, there's going to be, you see this trough right here dipping down? That's going to nudge the high a little bit. So if the storm gets in here faster, the storm's going to continue riding along the high before it has a chance to weaken. So that would send the storm more west, right? The slower the storm goes, if it kind of meanders out there a little bit, then this trough has time to weaken the high and push it to the east, which would in turn push the storm more east. So I hope that makes sense. That's kind of the timing there that we're looking at. One thing that could sometimes slow down a storm is the interaction with land. The interaction with land around Cuba, right? As it goes over Cuba later this evening. We can still see that maybe affect it a little bit. Maybe it slows down a little. Maybe that changes the tracks. That's the one variable I've been telling y'all about, is still Cuba. It needs to go over Cuba. We need to see what it does. Does it do anything? Does the center relocate? Does it slow it down? Does that adjust the tracks at all? So that's the one variable, because after Cuba, it's all water and it's coming to the coast. So we still need to get past that and see what actually happens, and that could change some things. But that's, I'm going to wait for that to see what happens. Yeah, I did, Brandy, and that's kind of why I'm trying to clarify that. I misspoke earlier. Again, my brain is... What I meant to say earlier is the faster it went, it goes more west. The slower it went would turn it more east. And I said the opposite earlier, and I clarified that in the comments earlier just to say what was going on. There's just something to look for, just something to see how fast the storm's going. It was in the last video. I misspoke at the end. I clarified that. So it's the opposite of what I said earlier, and I apologize. And sometimes I call storms different names. I called Sally salty last year. I called Ida an idiot earlier. It auto-corrected, and I'm typing in Ida. It auto-corrected it to idiot, and I looked at it. And I'm like, you know what? That actually works. Let's just keep it. Let's just keep it at that. So sometimes I will just let them go through. Why not, right? I think we all share the same sentiment right now that Ida is an idiot. So anyway, that's the scenario there. A faster storm would ride along the high and go a little bit more west, whereas a slower storm would allow that trough to come down and kind of weaken the high and then turn more to the east. So we'll have Cuba tonight, and there'll be another thing at the end of it where the storm actually starts approaching the edge of that high. So what happens is, as we get closer to landfall, as almost like a car, putting its blinker on, as the storm begins to make that turn around the edge of that high, there is always a slowdown that happens, and that can adjust things. Remember, that's why things happen. Y'all over there in y'all are in like Pensacola area. You remember last year it was y'all remember Sally very well, right? Well, that's kind of what happened with that. Sally was supposed to come close to like Plaquemines Parish, turn north, like I think around like Mississippi, if I remember correctly. It slowed, it almost stalled, wasn't moving, and it allowed that high to nudge over, and all of a sudden it started riding around the high east around Pensacola. And so that's what happened. And those types of things, by the way, can happen in the last few hours, and they're impossible to predict. And obviously, if there's a plot twist with this one at the very end, that's not going to be good. Sally was bad, but this is going to be really a strong hurricane, comparing it, to what Sally was. And Sally was bad in its own right. So those things can happen, and they happen sometimes in the last few hours of these tracks, and they're just impossible to predict. And you just got to kind of watch them live and see what the heck's going on. But that's the scenario right now that a couple of things to kind of watch for as we move forward. All right, what else do we have to show? Anything else here? Let's see. I'll start looking at some questions if there are some questions. Let's see. Let's change this a little bit just to kind of show you how I showed you this earlier. So how it will evolve. As it comes off of Cuba. This is still 12Z, the latest GFS. Is not in there. So as we go forward here, you see kind of as this gets over Cuba, then it's back into the Gulf, and then at that point we go into tomorrow afternoon and evening, and then we start to see the storm expanding a bit, and look what happens there by Sunday early afternoon. We have a full-fledged hurricane, and it's big. I mean, you can look at the size of what that could look like potentially, in the Gulf. It's almost taking up like the entire Gulf there. So this thing could expand pretty greatly, and that's why I think storm surge is going to be going to be an issue. and just the impacts are going to be an issue. I mean, even far away. And notice, I mean, I don't know if this is exactly how it'll look at landfall, but if you notice what happens here is obviously the worst weather is going to be around the center of circulation, some of the banding here. But notice even way over here, right? Deep convection close to like the Florida Panhandle, maybe around Mobile. There's a chance that some of those intense bands, because you're going to have just a big hurricane here, you could see some pretty decent storms even as far east as the Florida Panhandle, right? You're not going to have I don't think you'll have life-threatening issues, but you could still have some nasty weather over there, even far east from the center. So keep that in mind here. The storms are going to expand greatly from this thing. There's a storm surge. Where's the key points? Just the new ones. This is from 11 a.m. Let's see if we can reload that. There we go. Yeah. So the second one there talks about the the storm surge inundation Sunday along the coast of Louisiana and Mississippi within the storm surge warning areas. Life-threatening inundation at 10 to 15 feet above ground levels possible within the area from Morgan City, Louisiana, to the mouth of the Mississippi River. Interest throughout the warning area should follow any advice given by local officials. Yeah. Ida's, expect to be an extremely dangerous major hurricane when it reaches the coast of Louisiana. Hurricane force winds in the warning area. That includes metropolitan New Orleans, potentially catastrophic wind damage possible where the core of Ida moves on shore. That's going to be close to the coast, wherever that actually does come on. Actions to protect life and property should be rushed to completion in the warning area and really completed tomorrow. And then the other threat I talked to you about is the heavy rainfall, where it could, that's going to be possible across southeast Louisiana, coastal Mississippi, Alabama, resulting in considerable flash, urban, small stream, and river flooding is going to be possible as well. And also possible across the lower Mississippi and Tennessee valleys as it moves to the north. So many hazards with this system. It's hard to even talk about. So this was an image earlier I showed, and I know somebody asked about specific areas. This was from earlier. This is before it was forecast to be a Cat 4. So basically, I don't know. This was from WWL, Peyton Malone over there. I liked it. It's not as accurate right now, but you can kind of get an idea in those areas that are 120 plus right there. It says 120 plus. Think 140 plus now, right? And that those purple areas there. And this obviously has shifted a little bit to the west. But looking at the winds there, you can kind of see, obviously around the core are going to be the most of them, stretching out a bit. I still think around Metairie, Kenner, these areas are still going to get hurricane strength winds right around the eastern side, especially. How much remains to be seen. Can't give exact numbers. I just don't know where it's going to come on shore. But hurricane certainly going to be possible there, and then stretching out toward the North Shore and toward the Mississippi Gulf Coast over there. Winds not as much of an issue, but still could get hurricane winds on the North Shore as well. As this thing pushes off to the north, and that's the same around Baton Rouge too, and maybe tropical storm force winds over there on the Mississippi Gulf Coast too. So that's kind of the best I can do right now, and we'll fine tune that still. Right, there's still some fine tuning to this forecast, but we can just basically the main thing I've been focusing on with this is the intensity and the urgency to get the message out that I thought this thing was going to be more than with that, because I know some people weigh their decisions sometimes. They look at the National Hurricane Center's cone yesterday and they see it's only a 2. And look, I'll be honest, if it was a 2 like it was forecast yesterday, I mean, I'd probably stay, right? I'd probably stay here if it's a 2. Yeah, we'll have bad weather, but we went through Zeta last year. That was a 2, 3 at the coast, but we didn't experience anything more than a Category 1 in Kenner, and that was intense, okay? So I know how people make their decisions, and as long as on the screen they see that 2, they're like, oh, we'll stay for this. We can weather that. So the urgency for me in the last day or so has been, this is probably not going to be a 2. Make your decisions, and again, I posted on the page. People hit back at me. That's fine, but I wanted to let you guys know before it came out that if your decision right now is being made because you think it's going to be a 2 or maybe a low-grade 3, I want you to think in terms of this will be a 4 or maybe a high-grade 4 and maybe approaching 5, and then make your decision on that. And that has been my urgency for the last day or so, is just to get that message out. And the post was shared a lot. I do appreciate that, because I think that was an important message to get out there to people that this is probably not going to be a 2. This is going to be more than that. And so that's where my focus has been. And I appreciate you guys. You know, if you follow the page, I don't post things just to scare the crap out of people. That's not what I do. I saw something, I wanted to tell people, and I wanted you to prepare for a worse storm and make your decision on that, not on something, because I don't want you to come back and say, this was only supposed to be a 2. We stayed back and got a 4 or a 5. What the hell are you doing? No, that's never going to happen on this page. So thank you guys for defending me against some of those people that were on there. They ended up deleting their comments, I saw, because you guys marched in. I appreciate that. So there's a look right now at Ida, Hurricane Ida, 80 miles per hour. It's between the Isle of Youth and approaching the western coast of Cuba right now. But you can see the actual presentation of it has improved greatly over the last day or so. And we can look at the as this loads a little bit. I got so many tabs open, it's going to be slow going. But you can see there that core, those black. Now notice in the last few frames, you see the black area there, and then at the end you're starting to see them decrease a little bit. And what's happening right now is it's squeezed between the Isle of Youth and also the island of Cuba. So right now it's trying to intensify, but it's probably not going to be able to do much when it's squeezed right now. It's going to move into the Cuba and then get back over the Gulf later tonight. So right now I'm thinking we'll kind of not see too much intensification over the next couple of hours at least, but by tonight we should see it get back over the Gulf and then start to intensify a bit more. So that's a look at the storm right now. As far as anything that's going to really hamper intensification, the thing I've been talking about the last couple of days is this upper low. There's a little bit of a spin here, but that's decreasing in intensity and pushing off in that direction. So it's not going to help us much. What we have, what we're seeing here is you see this nice fanning of these clouds here around it. It shows that there's good outflow, good venting, so to speak. Like with a fireplace, you open up the flume and it goes out. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing here. It's got good venting in the above portions of the storm now. And, at some point it was still dealing with a little bit of wind shear on this side, but at some point we'll see all four corners with that, with that good venting. May happen when it gets back over the Gulf of Mexico. So presentation of the storm looks good right now as far as intensification, and really the Gulf is primed. No dry air in the Gulf, and the shear looks like it's going to be pretty low. There's a little bit of dry air down here, but again, nothing's indicating that that's going to really affect the storm too much. So it looks like it's going to be able to do what it wants. Do what it wants once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. So again, if you're joining late, I do this kind of a summary here at the end. Here is where what's it called is right now, Ida. I forget the name again. That's Ida, and it's between the Isle of Youth and the western coast of Cuba right now. It's forecast to get back into the Gulf tonight, and then just has water right in front of it, right? Very deep, very hot water in front of it. But it is forecast now, officially to be a Category 4 now from the National Hurricane Center. They do... they do have a 140 as their prediction with gusts up to about 160 or 165. Could it get higher than 140? Again, like I've been telling y'all, I think it could. I think it could get higher than 140. I pray it doesn't, but all the conditions are right that it really can do what it wants. So, at this point, the hope is that maybe we'll see a couple of eye wall replacements that slow down the intensification, but I'm sure at one point we're going to see a period of rapid intensification for about 12 to 24 hours where every advisory it's going to be increasing, and hopefully at some point it just caps off and maybe goes through an eye wall replacement that'll kind of slow it down for a little while at least, so we don't get into some kind of ridiculous wind number. So yeah, that's my hope here with this one. So you notice there the bend at the end, and this is big because we do have kind of a bend here that's happening as it comes in, but then kind of hooking back, in this direction. And so remember, because that's going to be happening, remember the center is going to be somewhere here, or, maybe a little west. We'll see or east. We'll see what happens. But remember, all these rain bands, even as it hooks to the east, are going to be pulling up in that direction. So that's why I think the rainfall totals are so high. Bay St. Louis could be hit kind of hard, Dylan. they're saying that surge could be as high as 7 to 11 feet there in the coast. So I would certainly heed any advisories or evacuations around an area if they're calling for them. I'm not sure. I mean, I can't touch on every single evacuation. So I mean, we'll see. But again, I will say that if you're in the Acadiana area over there, Lake Charles now is officially out of the cone, so that's good for Lake Charles. Last thing they needed was anything else this year, so you're out of the cone. But with that said, if this thing does decide to go a little bit more to the west, right? If this thing does decide to go over here, close to the south of New Iberia, south of Lafayette, or if it takes the extreme western portion of this, that would keep it in water longer, and it will still be a strong hurricane, and maybe even stronger if it would take the western track. So if it does take anything west of where it currently is, remember, Lafayette, Lake Charles, y'all would still get some significant impacts from this if it takes a more west track. And y'all are, so although Lake Charles, you're out of the cone, we got to watch this, though, because, again, that extreme western portion of the cone still takes it very close to your area. And I will say the same thing on the eastern side as well. This would probably be, if it takes that slower track and that high has time to bend to the east, well, then we're looking at effects to this area a lot more. So the cone's there. You see the cone. There's still it's squeezing in a little bit with each advisory, but we're still talking about the seeing some margin for error there. So there you go. Let's see. All right, so let's see what else I had. I don't know, I had a bunch of stuff here open. Was there anything else I didn't touch on? There's the cone. There's the wrist. We already touched on that. There's idiot right there, the visible satellite picture. What else do we have? Do we have a new GFS model loading in yet? Let's see. See if anything new trickling in. The 6 o'clock model. What do we have? 18 hours? That's not going to be enough. That's all we got. All right, so I'll watch that and see what happens. The European model from today, by the way, this is what the European model was indicating. So you see that, the strengthening all the way to landfall, and very similar to where the National Hurricane Center's cone is. I mean, right there, and that's maybe a little west of that. I'm not sure. It's hard to see, but you get the point. Louisiana's under the in the crosshairs here. Yeah, I think I touched on everything there. Okay, so let me see. All right, let's see what's going on here. Let's see what kind of. Can you show the storm? That's the storm right there. I don't know if you're asking for, Jason. If that's what you're asking for, I think you probably meant, can you show the storm live now? Yeah, that's it right there. That's it right there, south of the western coast there of Cuba, and you can see the core there. It's intact. It's losing a little bit of intensity right now, only because it's squeezing between the two land masses of Cuba and the Isle of Butte there. So it's not going to be able to do too much, I don't think, over the next 2 or 3 hours or so. So we might see just maybe winds not increase too much from 80, maybe even decrease a little bit. Don't get your hopes up too much, because you may see the winds go down tonight a little bit from 80 down to 65 or 70. That's only because it's going to be crossing Cuba. It's going to lose the water source for a little while. So yeah, don't get your hopes up too much, because I think once it gets back to the Gulf, it's going to be coming back up. Polly asks, is there an estimate of when it's going to be finished crossing Cuba and emerge back to the Gulf? Yeah, there is a little bit, right? Let's see. So going back to the forecast coming from the National Hurricane Center, let's see. Where's this thing here? All right, so it's right here. So by 1 a.m. tonight, there it is, Polly, right? It's off of Cuba, right? That's by 1 a.m. So I would say between now and then, we're at 4 and that's 1 a.m. So what is that, about 9 hours? So split the difference, about 4.5 hours from now. What would that be, like 9? Maybe like 9 or 10 o'clock. It might be emerging off the coast of Cuba, possibly. Maybe about 9 or 10 o'clock tonight. If nothing changes, speed, if it doesn't slow down at all, we'll see. say in the next 5 hours or so. Jacob, Jesse Cantori. It's funny. I took a picture with Jim Cantori back after Katrina, in I don't remember where he was actually. It was at one of the malls here, Cleveland Mall, I think. And I'm really tall. I'm like 6'6", and he's not very tall. And the picture of us together was kind of funny to, to look at. Yeah, Polly, that 1 a.m. 2 a.m. update tonight. Here's what I want to see, because the National Hurricane Center has it actually up to 110 at 1 a.m. tonight, at that 1 a.m. update. That's ambitious, because, I mean, going over Cuba is going to obviously do some sort of disruption to it. But they have it back up to 110 at that point. And so that's quick. And I want to see if that actually happens, because to me that seems a little bit ambitious. And I'm hoping it does not happen, because if we got a 2 down there, that's overachieving. And that's yeah, we don't want a 2 at 1 a.m. tonight, right? We want Cuba to do something to it, weaken it to something. Geez, bring it back to like 50 miles per hour, maybe, right? Maybe that's too ambitious, but yeah, I'm interested to see if 1 a.m. tonight we actually see a category 2, because that's that wouldn't be too good. All right, let's see. Is Jim Cantori in Laplace? I saw something about that he checked into a hotel there, but you never know on the internet if anything's true, right? Jacob says I need a rain hat. Yeah. Let's see what we have here. Yeah, Slidell's gonna take a hit here, right? I mean, hopefully it'll be far enough away from the center. But look, anything east of where the center is, it's gonna be some mess falling, right? Rainfall, a little bit of surge, flash flood potential. It's gonna be significant impacts east of the center, and even to the west a little bit too, because it's gonna be one of those well-rounded centers where things are rounding, the actual center of circulation there. So, yeah, there you go. It's gonna be a lot of different hazards with this thing. So many to even talk, like I talked about them earlier, but we're talking storm surge, wind, tornadoes, flash flooding, power lines, trees. These things can fall down with the saturation of the ground, and then the wind comes in after. So a lot of things we have to watch. River flooding possible, maybe after. Not doing day drinking. Although it seems like I probably do sometimes. No problem, Debbie. Appreciate you joining. A lot of comments, trying to see if there's any questions in here. A lot of comments about day drinking and the fact that I insulted Ida. It was just yeah. They always do. Someone posted they checked into a hotel they work in, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, right? I mean, New Orleans area is obviously going to be on the eastern side of it. I mean, if I was like chasing this hurricane, I would probably go there too, right? I mean, he doesn't want to be in the coast down there. I mean, that's going to be very dangerous, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. What's up, Johnny? Good to see you on here. So that's the latest on Ida. Somebody called her Idaho earlier. If Ida was a state, she'd be Idaho. I saw that one. So if autocorrect corrects it to Idaho, I might keep it. So that's the latest. Unfortunately, it is forecast now to be a Category 4 storm. That's what we are looking at this point. 140 would gust up to about 165 or 170. Could it get higher than that? I mean, it could. It actually could. But right now, the National Hurricane Center is it's official now. I know a lot of people called me out in the page because I said I was trying to scare people earlier with that post, but I wanted you to prepare, excuse me, for this as if it was going to be at least a 4. And now it officially is, and unfortunately, that's not what we wanted to see, but this is what we have now with all this water ahead of it and perfect conditions for it to, near perfect. I don't know if it's perfect, but it's near perfect. So there's a look at the latest on this storm. I will keep y'all posted moving forward with this. I appreciate y'all watching this update. We'll have a, let's look at one thing before this goes off here. And then we have a little bit of runs of the GFS. See if this looks any different than before. It doesn't look like it, right? It doesn't look like it's going to be too different than what we saw before. Still looks almost the same, and I'm sure the next frame would be a kind of a hook to the north there. So yeah, it doesn't look too different. I'm sure we're looking the same on here as well, right? Yeah, that's beautiful. Jeez. Yeah, so you get the point. Expansion of the storm toward the end of the forecast there. All right. Well, thank you for watching this. We'll have a new update from the National Hurricane Center as far as winds go. Don't expect those winds to increase too much in the next couple of updates because of the fact that it's near Cuba. Might even see it weaken a little bit, but by later tonight and into tomorrow, then I think we'll see some intensification. All right, thanks for following the page. Share this page, tag your friends, do whatever you need to do if you want them to see this page. Appreciate y'all following. Appreciate Paul Davis, Restoration of Baton Rouge, for being one of our partners. And stay with the page, and thank you to the supporters and the folks send me stars. Really do appreciate it. And yeah, stay with the page. I'll continue to keep y'all updated as we move through this IDA threat. All right, everybody have a good rest of the evening, and certainly we'll be back for Tropics After Dark.